of success
Yes,
worldwide.
that's why I'm waiting to read more about the new law that came to us from the ministry or the cabinet of ministers. We have to make sure that there is a special section for the special needs, because special needs doesn't mean handicapping mentally. It means actually could be a brilliant guys like Einstein, like Beethoven, Spielberg, the very famous movie director. So these are special needs, but they're not handicapped. We have to differentiate between handicapped and special needs.
And even handicapped.
And so, no, first of all, I totally understand, but at least special need doesn't mean handicapping. Actually, it means that they need special treatment. And so the schools have to be accepting them. Schools have to have the infrastructure that can enable them, because the number in need is big because of genetic issues in marriage and so forth. So that's part of my observation in the new law. If it doesn't, then we have to sit down with the specialized people and we have to see how can we reinforce it in our new law.
What's in your capacity? Do you have any proposals? Have you presented any proposals, or any proposals are underway to be able to raise awareness among teachers,
the proposal
among
now
school administration?
it's not a implemented proposal, but it's a request for hearing sessions for all stakeholders involved in this matter. And one of the stakeholders is official numbers of these different profile of our kids and children, and the diversity of their existence in Egypt here. So hearing sessions number one before we say this is what we propose at the end.
Moving on from the educational system to another equally important field, which is surveillance over different sectors in society, which is like, for example, the recreational areas.
Yes.
I mean, like hotels, restaurants, cafes, clubs, health clubs, everything that is related to that particular sector. There are special regulations, special precautions that are supposed to be taken and supervised, like the health inspection, like the ethical inspection, like security inspection.
Yes.
This is another also important
well, actually,
front.
you know that yesterday after the game of Egypt with Cameroon, there is one
sad event.
nice gentleman who was killed because of the unacceptable behavior of the owner of
Bullying.
this cafe. Bullying is part of, but it's bigger than this, because I believe this is a very big corruption issue that Egypt has to stand up for it. The president is always talking about corruption, but unfortunately he talks and the government doesn't do the necessary due diligence of what he said. I wish they have to listen to him and take the appropriate action. Obviously the corruption is not top, but it's actually from deep rooted down in the municipalities. This happened, and I also faced a similar issue in Sharm el-Sheikh, where I was faced that some cafes also, they are just breaking all rules, nobody is listening to them, and when I digged inside, there is a corruption in the municipality of Sharm el-Sheikh. So these things, I will raise it as member of the parliament away from the education committee, because it has to be surfaced, and if it is surfaced, it should be handled. And so corruption in terms of hygiene factors, we don't know what type of food is been. There is so many poisoning cases that takes place now, even in up 5-star type of cafe and restaurants. There is corruption in terms of bribing. Is paying because some of them work without license. There is corruption because some of them, although they have certain acceptance as a license of doing X, they do X plus 10. So nobody actually inspect whether they are sticking to the X only that they are allowed to do or operate. And so all of these are schemes of corruption. And unfortunately, whether we're talking about the tourism police or the municipality or the Ministry of Health, they are all in one pot. They are all public servants to protect the health, the safety, the security of the Egyptian population. So this is a major issue, and I know that one of my colleagues is already submitting a proposal for anti-corruption activities in Egypt here.
But again, especially after that incident.
Yes. No, it's been there. I mean, Mr. Medhat Sharif is a member of the parliament for Heliopolis, Masr Gedida is actually working very hard against this, and we are all supporting him. But maybe when it comes to the media, these kind of issues, then it takes a momentum for a while and then it actually diminishes again. But it's been there, and we would like to take the words of the president and try to put it into both law and activation of the law, or reinforcement, very harsh reinforcement of the law. Because this happens, and if the media doesn't talk about it, if we don't actually talk about the corruption, then there is no improvement in this country.
Right. Regulating also violence in the streets and violence in stadiums, violence inside public areas. Usually, I mean, like in a mall, for example, a special act of violence or a certain act of violence is taken, and the responsibility is not taken seriously by the people who are in charge there, as long as it does not touch the building. Or I mean, how can that be regulated to be able to provide security for our youth, for the citizens, for people who are I mean, going inside that building? I mean, how do you regulate things like that, violence in general?
Personally, and I've been talking about this, but actually
in hotels,
anywhere, I go back to the ethics of some, I'm not saying all Egyptian families, but some Egyptian families, the ethics, the role of the mother and the father in the family to raise their kids in an ethical way. I've never heard that sexual harassment takes place in the street in holidays, except in Egypt here. You know, there is Eid, big first thing on newspaper the next day is the number of kids who are harassing girls in the street. In fact, they start now to put police officer ladies to try to control this. But this is all control mechanism. We have to go to the problem itself. It's an ethical, educational, behavior problem that a family, some of the families, actually, they don't raise their kids properly. I'm not saying Egyptians all, otherwise...
It's awareness. That's
it's
declining.
ethics, akhlaq. Ethics, it is no longer actually part of the some Egyptian families. And that's why you see the behavior of kids actually, not older people, the generation today. I'm talking about the kids of today. Some of the parents, they don't really care about how to well behave their kids. And that's why you see them on the street, you see them doing all of this, whether in stadiums, whether even when they talk, you know, how they talk. So,
I mean, manners.
Exactly, behavior, manners, and I think this is not to be controlled except by raising this on the media and asking parents to take care more of their kids.
Right. We move on from those domestic issues to international, since you are also a member of the International Relations Committee inside the Parliament, and a new president coming into the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., Mr. Trump. And the moment he steps in office, he takes a restriction order over 7 countries. Among them are Muslim countries that they should be banned from entering the United States. It was then stopped by a judge.
Yes, blocked.
It has a judicial order, but how do you read that particular
Well, I
order?
read very simple that President, among his campaign promises was 1, 2, 3, and unexpectedly, it is well known that he won, unexpectedly. And so he wants to make sure that those who have voted to him and put him on this highest post on earth to be the President of the United States, he's actually doing what he promised. And I know, not personally, but I know from reading about the history of Donald Trump, he's a man of his word. Whether it is blunt or not, he's a man honoring always his words. And so he did what he promised to do. I, as an Egyptian, I cannot actually complain because it's not my country, it's his country. The question is the feedback now from within the United States. That's what actually happens. Because as you see, there were demonstrations, there were official objections from different countries, but nobody cared in the United States, except when the courts blocked this kind of decree by the president. So for me personally, I would not be able to say yes, this is good or bad, because he's just gentleman is protecting his country, and officially he said, I'm not against the religion. In all official conferences, the press conferences, it was bluntly said. Is it for politics to say that or not? You and I cannot judge, because I put myself, let's say, in front of, in place of our President Sisi. If I feel that there is a sector coming from abroad that comes and try to attack and make terrorist attacks, I will block them from coming. Like what we did in Sinai. What we are doing in Sinai is one way of blocking people not to come illegally.
And forming a buffer zone inside.
Exactly. So
but
there is nothing wrong in that. We have to be more political in terms of our emotions. We have to see why he did that and what he did.
You mean
was
politically mature?
Exactly.
Yes.
Because what he did, is it acceptable for his own people? If it is yes, that's our own country. But if it happens to me as an Egyptian, a member of the parliament, I will ask for a reciprocal treatment, because the dignity of a population or a country is the respect of its own citizens. So if you don't like Egyptians to come to the United States, I will feel pity, I feel sorry, but at the same time I have to say, if you don't like me, then I also don't like you. You see? So for me it's a matter also of the feedback from these 7 countries. Iran have done that. They said no Americans come to Iran. So again, it's very simple as a response by saying if this happens, then I should be the one to say we have to have a reciprocal treatment.
Exactly. But then some political analysts would ask that since the percentage of people who are recruited in terrorist militant groups and people who are committing acts of violence and assassinations and planting bombs and all that terrorist acts are the percentage is more, for example, Australians or Belgium or European in general, more than Egyptians or Arabs, and terrorist acts are taken against Arabs. So how come would that restriction order include Arab countries and not include European
Dina,
countries?
you're talking as if President
Haven't
Trump
they done their survey?
That's why you're talking as if President Trump have done his due diligence to go into details.
They should.
It was a political
if it's a political,
campaign,
then it should
was
come
a political
politically
campaign
correct.
promise. Okay, like building the wall between the U.S. and Mexico, and like
and
claiming
the Mexicans
exactly, and claiming that Mexico will pay for it. And the President of Mexico said we don't have the money to do that, and if we are going to pay for it, we are going to charge the U.S. citizen for our products. I mean, so these are all promises. We cannot.
So
really
this is a political restriction order. Not a precautional one, because the people who are the source of terrorist acts are not Arabs.
Yeah, not only that, even all the problems that happen in the United States as terrorist attacks nowadays after 9/11, it's all coming from U.S. citizens. So it's not because of combating terrorism, but at least there is, of course, nobody can deny that Islam now is tarnished by the behavior of such fanatic people. In fact, you heard about this gentleman, Egyptian, who in Paris, and he was visiting the Louvre Museum, and he was shot because he had a knife. So they found that he had no bombs, nothing. And until today, it seems that there was just an issue of discussion that the police officer, the French police officer, didn't like the behavior of that gentleman, so he shot him.
So they gave themselves the
right, because again, this stereotyping of you look like an Arab and your behavior is not acceptable to me, and so this happened. So we are investigating this now, and we as a parliamentary, we ask for more details of this, because this will ruin the image of Egypt. We're trying to improve the image of Egypt at a time where the media in France say that this attacker is an Egyptian citizen. All right, but we have to go deep, and I think at the end he will not be charged with anything because he didn't do anything wrong. And there is no charge that if you have a knife in your back that you are a terrorist.
Exactly. Wouldn't that ruin the?
But if you aggravated me as a police officer, and I'm not well, in terms of modest behavior, I may retaliate by improper behavior. This improper behavior would be misunderstood. But I have to put myself on the shoes of the French officer Because look what happened in southern part of France when this
In Nice.
you know, this truck killed people in Nice.
It happens
So-
everywhere, and it happens
Yeah,
here
but
in Egypt.
most of them are unfortunately Muslims.
Exactly.
Germany, the same thing.
Exactly.
So we cannot deny, you know, why President Trump thought that way. I cannot say I don't like this. It's an internal issue, but if it happened to me as an Egyptian or to Egyptian citizens, I'll be the first to say this is good treatment. I know this had bad consequences because we rely a lot on our relationship now, which is improving, and I'm very happy and proud of the improvement that's taking place around between President Sisi and Trump. But at the same time, dignity is priority number one. I don't mind not to eat.
And credibility.
I don't mind. Dignity of
and
the
credibility
Egyptian.
of the act itself on the U.S. administration should be credible. It would make any sense because he was one of the presidents who gave hope to the whole Arab world and the world by promising to act on an opposite, unlike the former administration,
Dina,
and fight terrorism.
Yes, Dina.
Is
we
this
have
an
to
act that
differentiate
in
between
its sense to
ISIS.
fight
No,
terrorism?
we have to differentiate between ISIS, which is not for me a religious ideology. It's a political ideology by some intelligence agencies of number of countries. We know them. Among them are Arab countries, and they are using the religion as their flagship. And between terrorist attack that is taking place because of the religious ideology. Trump promised that he should fight this political ideology, ISIS and whoever behind it. And that's why Egypt is in full line with that. But the incident that happened in Germany or happened in France, or it may have happened also in the United States by citizens of by the United States, it's not a political ideology, it's a religious ideology. So that's what Trump was trying to block. But he is supporting, and Russia and Egypt now are on the same boat in terms of combating directly ISIS and terminating. And he said it in a couple of interviews. We are the one who built this issue, and we are the one who should bring end to it. We means the United States, the previous administration.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that the state is currently managing 8 national projects which are being executed by more than 1,000 companies and nearby 2 million Egyptian workers, although he warned that development in the education and health sector is unlikely for some time. President said that the cost of those projects is more than £1.3 trillion. So why we're very cautious in getting into details to avoid any corruption. He added the military is participating in these national projects through its own engineering authority, but only for the sake of monitoring the performance and to make sure that the expenditure of those projects is wisely spent. Sisi also said it will take between 12 and 13 years in order to achieve what we have in mind for the education sector, which is nearby the same case with the health sector as well. Egypt's spending on healthcare and education would account for 5.7% and 11.1% of total government spending, respectively. Moreover, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announced a number of government decisions, including the establishment of an authority for the development of Upper Egypt, which is tasked with creating jobs and maintaining Nubian monuments with investments of up to 5 billion Egyptian pounds. During the closing session of the second monthly youth conference in Aswan, the President announced the launching of a national project to create several industries for micro and small industries, as well as the establishment of 200 small factories in all Upper Egyptian governorates over the next 6 months. Sisi also announced the expanding of the Takaful and Karama social safety program in Upper Egypt to include creating employment for the offspring of families eligible for the program. The Social Solidarity Ministry's Takaful and Karama program, established by the government in early 2015, is a national social safety net program aimed at protecting the poor through income support. Meanwhile, the German company Siemens completed the implementation of the first phase of Beni Suef, Borollos and the new administrative capital power plants to add 4,800 megawatts to the national electricity grid. The company announced that it set an international record in implementing projects with such a tight timetable. The company fulfilled its promise by implementing the first phase in 18 months from the date of the signing of contracts and exceeded the 4,400 megawatts capacities which had been agreed upon. The added capacity of the first phase of Siemens projects will cover the electricity needs of more than 1 million citizens. Sources from the government revealed that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will inaugurate the completion of the first phase of the Siemens projects in a few months.
Dr. Ibrahim Hegazy, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee and the Education and Scientific Research Committee inside the Parliament, thank you very much for your valuable input.
Thank you for the time you gave me, and I wish all the best for our beloved country.
And this is where we end this edition of Egypt's Parliament. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.